Next gen. Oh yeah, next gen. Sorry, I had to run the notes through my
I
head.
know.
I was like, what? I know
Hi,
I recognize
everybody.
that, but
Welcome. My name is Kelly Harkins. I'm the director of the American Science Fiction Fantasy Media Track. And Aaron. And tonight we are going to do kind of a flash quick reaction to the first episode of Superman and Lois that we had this week. So we're going to just, obviously, we have 15 episodes or 14 more episodes to go. So we're not going to know a lot, but we wanted to kind of get our initial gut reactions, some predictions. We'll see how off base we are by the time this is over. And then we can talk a little more about it at DragonCon itself this year. Fingers crossed everything goes off on that.
fingers, toes.
So, but in the meantime, so I will start off with our introductions. Karen, if you would like to start us.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm actually Karen Estes, so I am married to one of the other members of the panel. I am a lifetime geek. My very first Star Trek convention was in like 1982. And I've always been a fan of science fiction and superheroes and geeky stuff. And as proof, I married, I don't know which side he is for everybody else, but I married John Paul. So I am a big geek.
John Paul.
All right. Guilty as charged as well. The better half there. Just got through speaking. I'm the lesser half, I guess is what that makes me. If you've been to DragonCon, you've seen me probably on many of Kelly's panels. Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, Flash, all the Arrowverse shows. That's if it's DC Comics related, I tend to watch it, and doesn't mean I love all of it. I critique it as much as anyone else, but I've been reading DC Comics since I could read. That's what I learned to read on. Specifically Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. So Superman has always been my hero. So I was more excited about this show than you can imagine. So I'm excited to talk about this and move on to the next person.
All right, Mike.
Hey, my name is Mike Faber. I am the host of the Earth Station 1 podcast and also the owner of the ESO Network. And we are a geek podcast that talks about all types of geeky stuff from, just general sci-fi and geeky stuff, but to music, science, LGBT issues, books, you name it, we talk all about it. And superheroes is always on our list to talk about. I've been a comic fan probably since I was like 5 years old or so. And I remember Superman being the big blue S. He was always bigger than life. He was always greater than, everything else. Like John Paul, I also loved Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. Started, becoming a Legion fan all the way, started reading all the way from their Adventure Comics issues all the way up to current. And, Superman along the way, and Superman in the Justice League, Superman with, all these different incarnations of him, even Superman Red and Blue. So there's so much to talk about. And then now to see Superman on TV again, and this time I really felt something special, and it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about this. It'll be real interesting. And thanks for having me, Kelly.
Sure. Aaron?
Hi, everyone. This is Aaron Dunn here, one of Kelly's minions. If you have been to DragonCon in the last 20 years and you've spent any amount of time in the our track room and you haven't seen me, you were not paying attention. I'll just leave it at that. Been a member of the track since we started way back in 1998. So my credentials for watching Superboy or Superman or any of the other iterations thereof of The Last Son of Krypton. I started reading comic books back in the mid 1970s. Yes, I am that old. I was at the time living in the UK, and we basically had either British comic books or reprints of the American ones. I can remember cutting my teeth, so to speak, on the Mighty World of Marvel, which was all Hulk and Spider-Man reprints, and then we got reprints of the very old X-Men. Huge X-Men fan, much more, I have to say, a fan of the Marvel than the DC universes. But that being said, I've been a follower of the Arrowverse since its inception, and have been very interested, enjoyed watching Supergirl, mostly, some things there. Have to remember, I'm not exactly the target audience for it, but was interested what we saw in the pilot this week, of course, for Superman and Lois. So interested to see where they go with it.
All right. So we will kind of take some really quick reactions. John Paul was the one who actually suggested we do this panel. So quick, short reactions to the first episode.
Well, this was a show that was made for me. Again, like I said, since I've been such a Superman fan for so long, and we've seen Tyler playing this part for the past few years on Supergirl, I have been, since his very first appearance on Supergirl, I've been wishing and praying and dreaming about having his Superman on the screen, because we've gone for I don't know how many years with starting over. Every superhero we get from the origin. This time we get a mature hero starting in the prime of his career. We get to see Superman being Superman, not learning how to be Superman. And on top of that, one of my favorite comics since about Rebirth in the comics has been Superman and Lois as parents over in the comics with Jonathan, and being a father and having two kids, getting to see him as a father, bringing his son along, going to the county fair, going fishing, doing all the stuff father and son like. I got to experience it on a completely different level, not just a kid wanting to grow up to be Superman, but now seeing Superman as a dad. It's another way to identify with it. So I think this show does have a way of it. It's not one target audience. I think it's multiple target audiences that each have their hook into it. So this is just, at least from a pilot standpoint, the most perfect show we could have asked for. And I want to say one thing. I should have said this before. I have to show off one thing. It's probably hard to see in here, but this is me with the very first Superman, Kirk Allen. So when I say I've been a Superman fan for a long time,
that's awesome. That is really awesome, dude.
For a long, long, long time.
OG.
Yep.
We're not worthy. We are so not worthy.
So, Mike, quick reactions.
Truthfully, I actually got the CW app because of this show. I stopped, we stopped cable probably about a year ago. And, I've been following what's been going on Flash and Supergirl and such, but I haven't been able to, watch the shows and everything. I've been waiting for this show since they announced it. And, they changed the character with Crisis, because before Crisis, him and Lois only had the one child. And now they have the twins. And it threw a whole different wrench, took it to a whole different direction. And I couldn't believe it was 2 hours, because it flew by just like that. It was really fun, and it laid so much groundwork. And I'm looking forward to talking about it and loving where this is going to go.
All right, Aaron.
I'm sitting a little bit on the fence. There's some parts of the show that I did not actually see the Crisis, that the mega crossover event that they did last year. I was trying to watch all of the rest of the shows leading into it before I saw the crossover itself. So I wasn't aware of that development, and I wasn't actually aware that we had seen Superman's offspring in the comic books, because one of my comments would be like, Superman has kids, when did this happen? I get that they're trying to appeal to a number of different audiences with this, and I'm a little on the fence about how successful they're going to be ongoing, because when you try to be, as we all know, when you try to be all things to all people, you end up failing with everybody. So there's a lot of potential here. The actor who plays Superman, he's done a really good job. I've liked seeing him in the Supergirl series. Big fan of Bitsy Tulloch from Grimm. Yay. So obviously good cast. I'm assuming the actors they have playing the youngsters are, they're working on a network show. They're going to be capable of the acting part of the job. Just going to have to see how it plays out. I can see a couple of storylines we're going to be looking at. I won't say too much on that because we might be discussing that later on here. But definitely there's a turn that Lois is going to take, and there's a direction, obviously, that, Superman's going to take. And one thing that I did that it kind of rubbed me the wrong way immediately was when they announced to the sons, hey, guys, what do you think about living here in Smallville? And there was no pushback on that. There was just, but how am I going to play football? And I'm like, no, I can remember myself as a teenager when my parents decided to move us to another country. I was 16 years old, and I had suddenly mastered the art of navigating friendships in the society in high school. I was not happy at the idea of moving to another country and starting over completely again. So when the guys were just like, sure, that to me felt very off. But we'll see. Again, pilots is very hard to judge from. Karen, pass it over to you.
I really enjoyed the pilot, but the very beginning, I was slightly annoyed because it reminded me of the Harry Potter Broadway thing, where Harry doesn't understand his son and his son doesn't talk to Harry, and they got rid of it quickly enough. But at the beginning, I was like, oh no, tell me this whole series isn't going to be about, oh, Clark doesn't understand his sons, and oh, his sons don't understand their dads. Once that he told the kids, it got 1,000% better. But at the beginning, I was agreeing with Lois, and oh, come on, Clark, you got to tell him.
I'm kind of still like Aaron, like many of you mentioned. Pilots are always tough because you don't have a lot of reactions from people. You don't kind of know where to go. You're kind of create them in a vacuum. So that always is kind of first reactions. I too was a little like, oh my God, could have gotten any more cliche with the angsty younger son who they don't think, I was like, really, do we have to do that? And I'm still a little concerned about that. So we will see. That I was not 100%. Much as I like Bitsy Tulloch, I'm not sure I like her as Lois. That might change as we see their relationship grow more, though, because we really haven't had that much. I mean, we got a lot of flashback scenes. Mm-hmm. So, it's hard to kind of get that relationship. And maybe she's just still too grim in my head for me to kind of see her as Lois. I don't know. But Taylor Hoechlin is one of the reasons I definitely wanted to see it, because I think many of us had that reaction. I know you guys have commented on that when we saw him step in as Superman, it was like, wow, we finally got a guy who can handle Superman and Clark and not come across too much or too little, just had a kind of sense of humor while he was approaching. And that really, I wanted to see how they grew that hero that we saw in Supergirl and in Crisis and how he would come to this point. So, and yes, Crisis did let them do some reworking that they wanted to do. So.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. And Lois took me a little bit getting used to when they introduced her. And because I've seen the actress on so many other things. And for me, it wasn't the Lois I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but we have had so many iterations of her that it was just interesting to see how this character was going to. But she proved herself a bit in this episode more than her other appearances.
Yeah, I had never seen her before. I didn't watch Grimm. As far as I know, I'd never seen the actress in anything else. And as much as I loved him, I was not sure during her brief appearances, over in the crossovers and such. But she nailed it. And I thought part of what worked for them is they had that awkward time where the actors are getting to know each other out of the way already from the previous Arrowverse crossover stuff.
Mhm.
Now they felt like they were a married couple. Their relationship was strong. They trusted each other. She's a very strong. I mean, they've got a perfect ensemble. They can focus on a strong Superman, both emotionally and physically. You have a strong female character in Lois who can run with multiple episodes just on her own. You got the kids where you can have a typical Dawson's Creek CW direction, but she can hold her own. I really think they'll end up doing, plenty of Lois focused stories. And she sold me in the first episode, especially since that was the only part I was worried about going in.
Well, the one thing I was happy when I heard that they were not going to do was any kind of love triangle or anything like that. Because those who've read the comics know that Lana Lang was Superman's girlfriend in high school. And, and they've always had the rivalry for a bit in the comics as they grew older. But they're not touching on that at all. And I'm glad they introduced Lana's husband, and it's going to be. They said that Lois and Clark's relationship is never ever going to be in jeopardy during this show, and that won me over right there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because they're supposed to be one of the most solid couples in comics. So I think if they kind of went down that alley, that would be a mistake. So.
And I think they made the worst mistake when they got rid of Superman and Lois in the New 52 when they first did that, and within the comics. And one of the best things they did was bring back the older Superman and was already married to Lois and everything again. So that's just me.
Yeah, that's one thing that always drove me nuts. Shows how old I am. In Lois and Clark, was the on again, off again thing.
Drama.
That they're together and then they're not, and then they're together and they're not, and it's like, oh, come on, pick one or the other. Don't just break up and then go back together and then break up and go back to it. Just that drove me nuts. And yay, if they're going to say yes, they're together and they're going to stay together, then we can enjoy the show and not go, oh, come on, you're going to break up again this week.
Exactly. Will they or won't they?
It's in the name of the show, Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
I mean, there's your clue, kind of.
Well, except I think Lois and Clark, that was a courtship piece.
Yeah.
That was all about that whole thing. We've seen that in so many shows where, will they get together? Won't they get together? And, that is not what Superman and Lois is. So.
And I just wonder here, I know this has really got nothing to do with anything, but did anyone think that Bitsy 2 looked the spitting image of Margot Kidder in those first early shots in the planet?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Okay, good. Let's not.
They were doing that purposely though.
Yeah. There was a lot of callbacks. Lots of callbacks to that.
Yeah. Rosemary also added about the kids as far as that. What did you all think about the kids? And I know I brought it up, but what you guys have focused on?
I was waiting for somebody else to say it because, I really hope that they managed to get past this whole, I have this, and look, for those people out there who may have kids who have these issues, I am absolutely, please do not misunderstand me. I am not negating the difficulties you work for. My cousin actually has a situation that with one of his daughters. But to put that on a TV show, which is intended for entertainment, I mean, you're either going to have, as we say, a very angsty situation, which is going to get very old for a lot of us that don't have to deal with it, and may in fact get even older for somebody who has to deal with it, and they're watching TV as an escape, and then they see the problems that they're facing every day. I don't know. They're either going to wave a magic wand and have this go away, which is diminishing the severity of the condition in real life, or they're going to have this be, something that for a lot of us is going to be, look, can we get past this, please? Yeah, I know the kid's got problems, but I want to see Superman go and beat the bad guy, or Lois track down the evil, scheming corporate person, who we'll talk about later, and do their thing.
No, agree completely.
Yeah.
Because I agree with that, because I like the switcheroo that they did with the sons, because the way they did it was assuming, the way they were showing it being the star, Jonathan being the star quarterback and everything, and then they did the switch, which was really awesome. It was it actually surprised me, because in the comics also Jonathan is Superboy, but I liked that they threw the little wrench in there and showed, hey, it's not the perfect kid that has the powers, and and they started growing, and he's hit maturity, and he's starting to get the powers are starting to come out, and I still think Jonathan is going to have end up having something, but I don't know what, and it'd be interesting if it was almost like they both split the powers or something. Would be kind of interesting, or some kind of watered down. But I hope they just don't whitewash it and push the kids aside type thing and everything.
Well, and I liked it when they gave him powers too, because suddenly he was always, nobody understands me, nobody understands me. Then he finds out Dad's Superman, and then he gets the powers, and suddenly there's a reason why I feel like I don't fit in. And I think that felt very natural to me, that he suddenly had an aha moment. Okay, so maybe it's not that I'm screwed up. Maybe there's a reason that I don't feel like I fit in with everybody else.
But it also explains why he was able to touch the spaceship and pull out the gem from it, or the crystal, and because he has the powers and such, like his father does. It was just really interesting that. And I didn't even realize that until we just started talking about it. It's like, oh, wait a minute, you saw the light bulb go on up over my head. So it was actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, I will say I was excited. I was excited they were doing it, because for the last few years, pre-Bendis era comics, my second favorite comic was the Super Sons, which was Jonathan, Lois and Clark's kid in the comics, and Damian Wayne, which is Robin, and it's Bruce Wayne's actual son. And their personalities are almost exactly the way they described Jonathan and Jordan. And knowing that Warner Brothers and the CW just refused to allow them to use Batman or anything like that other than Batwoman, but they can't actually bring in the real Batman and Robin and such, I figured this was just their best way of getting the Super Sons on television. And their personalities are close enough that you can have that, some of the best of the Super Sons stuff from the comics, that they can fight, but they care about each other. And you saw that constantly. Yeah, they pick on each other. They're brothers. But at the end of the day, they're going to stick up for each other before they pick on each other. And both of them do listen to their dad. Even if there was angst with the dad, there at the end, you saw, as soon as Clark sat down, next to Jordan and admitted, I can do better, there was an immediate, hug between them. It's where a family should go. It's sort of the ideal. Superman is always supposed to be about the ideal, showing what we could do and how we can be better. Not perfect, but how we can be better. And I think that's where they'll probably take it. And I agree. They'll probably end up doing some powers for both of them. They'll do some different things. But it'd be okay with me if there's no powers for Jonathan ever. That works really well with Damian and Jonathan in the comics, of one of them learning to rely on the other one from powers, and they're still a team. They're still equals, almost like Clark and Lois are equals, not physically, but they're equals in every other way. So I think it'd be a good way of watching that grow between the two of them.
One of the comments, I kind of wanted to bring this up too. I had concerns, and I say, Aaron, your point about having your own anxiety may be a trigger point. That's valid. The one thing I thought why they chose to do it, and the one reason why I was like, okay, it's a little cliche, a little stereotype, but it's something Superman can't fix.
Yeah.
So, and you can see that, and Hoechlin does a great job with it. You just see the frustration. He's like, as you brought up, he's in his prime, but yet now he's facing something, no matter how super strong and how super smart and et cetera he is, he can't do this. He can't fix this.
And Lois basically says exactly the same thing. He said, look, we didn't dream about this. you don't dream about the problems. You dream about the wedding. You dream about the perfect children, the perfect family. And nobody has that.
Mhm.
And especially now that we're going to throw the, oh, dad is Superman into the mix. Up until this point, it's just been dad's been a reporter and is away. Now we're going to have all of the other issues creeping in.
Well, exactly, and that's what made it interesting. Is no matter how powerful he is, and he is the most powerful being on the planet, that he still needs to have a human relationship with his children and be a father. And it doesn't take, you know, a super genius to realize, hey, I need to talk and be here for these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things Lois tells him. So.
Exactly, and I love how she laid it on the table for him.
But I also like the point that her father made at one point when he turns around to Lois and he goes, I told you about this when you talked about marrying this guy. You're not marrying just Clark Kent. You're marrying Superman. Superman does not get to have a normal family life. And neither do you if you're married to him.
Exactly. No.
Yeah.
Which I thought
As
was
normal as possible. So,
Yeah. And a lot of
Well-
that was very much a callback to, you know, the Christopher Reeve, the line when his dad dies, you know, all these things I can do, all these powers, and I couldn't even save him. It's that humanizing. I think that's, you know, Jeff Johns calling back to his relationship with Donner, and, you know, just making sure to emphasize that side of Superman, that he's completely super and he's completely man. He's got both. And you know, they do a good job with just a few of those lines in different places. Lois's speech, you're right, Lois's speech about the dreams and all, that was such a perfectly timed and well executed and delivered speech. That was so great.
I thought it was brilliant that they got rid of both Ma and Pa Kent within the first 15 minutes of the show, but you felt them throughout the rest of the episode. Literally, they were like almost standing behind Clark the whole time, and Ma Kent especially whispering in his ear the whole time, "Go back to come home," you know, the whole thing, and it was really powerful. And so much more powerful than Pa Kent sacrificing himself to a tornado. In thanks, Zach, but you know,
Yeah.
it's
Don't go there.
I'm not going there. I am so not going.
No.
But I thought it was brilliant, and I did love it in Smallville and also in Lois and Clark, where they did have Ma and Pa Kent still alive for most of the series. But I thought it was more realistic and more powerful to see them pass in this episode.
there's always a line that I remember when John Schneider came to DragonCon and he was talking about Smallville, and he made the comment that he approached having Clark as a son like a special needs kid. And now we have, because think about it, he really is. It's just different kind of special needs. And I was like, wow, that is so insightful. And now that you look at it, now we see our Superman here having a special needs kid. So I kind of agree. I kind of like to see them hold off for a while to give Jonathan powers, because he was always the star. So having him be second fiddle to his brother, I think could be, a good developing storyline. It's drama, what show is past that? So
I think what could be an interesting development, no guarantee, of course, that they're going to go this way, but if we have, so Jordan is the person with the superpowers, and we know that Jordan has anxiety issues, and we've already seen that when he's not off his meds, and they've made the point that he's on medication, that he's prone to tantrums, and I think that if we have, Jordan Jordan's got the superpowers, but Jordan needs somebody around him to take him down and kind of Jonathan be the safety valve, so that Jonathan's role is, no, I don't leap over tall buildings in a single bound. I'm just there to help you keep focused and to not get overwhelmed with all this. And by the way, you've got killer X-ray lasers in your eyes. This is not a good thing to let go of ever.
That did raise a question for me, though, because they talked about how Clark can't get drunk. Do the meds work on Jordan?
Evidently, they must,
struggling to do it without medication.
Human, so
that's a good question. Actually, that is a really good question. Now that his physiology
going through these changes, because last week he wasn't firing laser beams from his eyes, so something has changed in between. So yeah, that's a really good point, that maybe the meds are going to stop working. That would be very interesting.
Robert makes it. We could easily see a storyline this like a Brightburn kind of vibe, because of course Brightburn is super. We could. They could.
Yeah. But so, no.
I don't think they go too hard into CW. So, but they might dabble in on that and have him get pulled back.
Yeah, so there'd be a pullback. We can see there'd be a kind of a super powered after school TV special about taking your meds and
Well, would it be too far off to say that maybe eventually we might see a crossover with Superman and the Legion of Superheroes and them approaching Jordan?
That would be great. I mean, as long as it's a rebooted because of Crisis and we get the actual real Legion of Superheroes and not the sort of Legion of Superheroes we've had, that would be really good.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I could see them, especially with the connections in Supergirl, I could see them bringing Mon-El into this whole thing, and they could still bring that storyline in and not be too far off. Right? So
but doesn't everybody hate Mon-El?
I didn't mind him.
I didn't actually know, but I know there's a lot of hate out there about him.
Dude, there's hate about all different characters. Come on.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't like the romance things. Mm-hmm. So what do we think? We've talked a little bit about what we've said, but Mike, why don't you start with us where we think we have 15 episodes total this season. Where do we think we're going to be going in this first season?
Well, I think we're going to probably first half of the season is them adjusting to life in Smallville and finding out what's going on with Morgan Edge and everything, with him buying up all the farms and all the, the whole town basically. It seems something like right out of Watchmen, the series that they did on HBO. But it'll be very interesting to see what is going on with that. And I think that's going to be what Lois is going to be focusing on for most of the season. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole thing with Clark and Superman is just going to be dealing with the kids, but then also dealing with the mystery of this other Luthor that we saw at the end of the series. And basically, what is up with that? And I think that's going to be something. And I think my theory is that's going to tie into Crisis of some kind, that he's from when he said he's
far ahead.
I know I'm jumping, but you asked where do I think the season's going? True. And so that's where I think that's going to go, because I know John Cryer is going to be showing up as Lex Luthor later this season.
All right, Aaron, where do you see the season kind of?
Okay, well, just coming in on the tails of what Mike said there, I am very glad to hear that John Cryer is coming back as Luthor. One of the things I was concerned about was that they were going to retcon Luthor based on that last scene we saw in the episode, and I was like, "Come on, John Cryer just knocked it out of the park. Seriously, you're going to trash all that in Supergirl?" So I'm glad that we're not retconning John out of the universe, because I think that would have been a very, very bad mistake. Again, Mike, I'm kind of in sync with what you're thinking there. I think that you got a character like Lois. Lois is not going to be sitting out in Smallville in the middle of Kansas, offering her services for the local free newspaper. She's going to have something to get her teeth into. Now, it hasn't been actually really well established. We know that Clark got fired. I don't think we ever heard that Lois got fired.
I don't think she did.
Lois is supposed to be the #1 reporter in the world. So if she got fired from the Daily Planet, there's a queue around the block of people wanting to hire her.
Oh God, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So for her to step off the scene, she'll need something. She's gonna be like a sheepdog. If you put a sheepdog in an apartment, it has to start doing something. It'll herd your houseplants. It just can't not do anything. So I can see her definitely digging in the whole Morgan Edge thing. She already doesn't like the guy. She knows he's a sleazebag, and she knows he's up to something. So she's going to be digging into that. I think we're going to see with Superman, with Clark, he's going to be dealing with obviously this new quote unquote Captain Luthor. I think that's definitely going to be taking up some of his time. Otherwise, he'll be dealing with the emergency of the crisis du jour going on. Because the thing is, Superman might decide that he wants to go to the country and live quietly and have a family life, but the rest of the world is going to go and they're going to keep yelling for his help. And Superman, being Superman, he's not going to go on the sideline like, yeah, I'd like to come and save your lives in this earthquake, but my sons are at the Future Farmers of America meeting and there's a pig wrestling contest. Sorry, can't help you. That's not going to happen. And I think that kind of the third leg of the triad is going to be the two sons fitting into this new environment. They've come to Smallville on vacation once or twice. We know that Jonathan is not real impressed with Smallville. So he's going to have to do some adaptation and put his kind of dreams of playing quarterback in the back burner. He's going to adjust. Jordan already has a reason, like the cute little emo girl likes him, so yay, that's going to work well for him. But she has a boyfriend, not going to work so well for him. So it'll be the two of them adapting, the two city slickers, so to speak, adapting to this more rural environment with all the different rules in the high school and relearning that entire approach there. So you've basically got three different plot streams going on there, which, depending on the writers and how they're able to flip from one to the other and keep everybody interested, that's going to be a challenge.
Karen?
So, yeah.
Well, I purposely didn't watch any I didn't want any spoilers. I didn't want to know anything. I wanted it to be a fresh thing when I saw it. Mm-hmm. So I haven't read any of the predictions or anything like that. Just as John Paul was talking earlier, as a parent, I'm seeing, I bet there's going to be a lot of Clark having to juggle. Okay, I have boys who need me, and I have the world who needs me, and how to juggle his time. When can he be Superman, and when can he be there for his boys who he's just transplanted into Smallville, which also makes me think there was a lot in the Smallville TV series of Clark learning about his powers and learning to get them under control. So there may be some callbacks to the Smallville TV series with Jordan trying to get a handle on his powers and not tip everybody off and not tell the little emo chick, because some of the one thing that annoys me is in some of the TV shows and movies, by the end of it, everybody knows who they are. So can he keep from telling every person around there, oh, by the way, I'm Superman's kid.
You should like me.
Yeah.
Be my friend, please.
John Paul?
Yeah, I think Aaron was onto something there with the multiple storylines. They'll have a lot of different storylines, but they'll have, I'm thinking, 4 distinct groupings of stories. Very much, I always call back to the comics, but back in the 90s, they had 4 separate Superman comics. And you had 4 different teams of writers with one editor or group of editors making sure they all fit together. I'm hoping they have the writer's room kind of divided up like that, because you see the typical CW emo teen storyline going on. You've got Superman's adventures going on, just the straight Superman adventures. You've got the Lois and Clark as a married couple stuff that can happen with or without the kids. So you get the family element. You've got Lois by herself is the 4th one. So between Superman's adventures, Lois's adventures, the kids' adventures, and then the family adventures, I think those are the 4 separate groupings that they have to blend together. And that's a lot in only 15 episodes to juggle. So, nobody gets too many different pieces, and it's probably not entire episodes on each one. There's, the threads will weave in and out of each other. But if they can manage that, I think we'll have an incredible show. And then there's so many great things like the Captain Luther stuff and the Morgan Edge stuff, and so many callbacks to things that, since Jeff Johns is, one of the executive producers on this and one of the people helping guide it, not only does he know all that comic history, he knows that a good portion of the fandom is like myself or say Mike there that knows that history, and how many places is he going to swerve, like the Jonathan and Jordan, giving Jordan the powers instead of Jonathan. How many other places are those expectations going to be turned, upside down from what we would have expected in the comics? It'll be fun to watch it. I hope there's not too many upside downs. I hope a lot of it we get to see for the first time live that we've only read in the comics. But I think that'll be, maybe that's the fifth storyline, is how they play the emotions of us longtime comic book fans.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of interweaving. It's still in the Berlanti kind of field house. So that's kind of the way they do things. So real quick, I want quick reactions to your favorite character so far. I realize we only have 1 hour to really base off of, minus a little bit with, Clark and Lois before, but just instinct reactions. And we'll start with Aaron this time.
Lois. She, and some of that is simply because I like Bitsy's work. So I'm already kind of gravitating towards her corner, so to speak. I didn't say anything now, not to say anything bad about any of the rest of the cast there. Please don't get me wrong, but it's just I'm more familiar with her, and I think she's going to do a great job with this.
Okay, Karen.
I actually think I like Jordan. I think he is my favorite right now, though I just had a really weird connection thing in my brain that's creeping me out. And it just hit me that Lana reminds me of the next door neighbor from WandaVision.
Ooh. Don't worry.
Just the creepy brainwashed.
He turns into the arch villain. But from just that first impression, I think they fleshed out Jordan really well. Okay. John Paul?
Oh, for me, it's easy. I've been waiting for 52 years, minus a couple, till I could actually start reading. So say 49 years. I've been waiting for 49 years for Superman. I feel like I've been waiting and waiting. And at least based on the first episode, Superman's finally here. The way they portrayed him is exactly what I've always wanted. I get to see the mature Superman's adventures, not mature as an old, but fully realizing his powers, fully coming to his own, always trying to do what's right. A little bit of Mr. Rogers, a little bit of Jonathan Kent, his father, a little bit of, all the different things that make up Superman. I feel like my wait's over. I've been waiting for Superman, and here he is.
Mike?
Damn it, John Paul. You're taking all my lines. But yeah, because like John Paul, this is the first actor to play Clark and Superman who can play both roles since pretty much Christopher Reeve in the first Superman movie. I thought, he caught both of them pretty well, even though his Clark was a little bit too over the top. I think the Superman we're getting in this series, and we had gotten on Supergirl and the Crisis and everything, this is the Superman I always wanted to see, a more mature, seasoned Superman who already knows his powers, knows his extent of his abilities, but is also able to learn and everything. And it's just great to see him be not a Clark Kent who's just a total wimp, and being, that he's a normal guy. And it's just awesome. But, the only thing I even have a problem with him as Superman is I never thought I'd really see Superman with 5 o'clock shadow all the time, but I think he's awesome. I really like him. And, this is a believable Superman from the very beginning of this episode, where they reenacted Action Comics #1's cover, him catching the green car, and and it was just awesome.
Yeah, the
And-
PT Cruiser was perfect.
Yeah, the PT Cruiser was great for that, and I loved it. It says, "Hey, I like your suit. Thanks, my mom made it."
Yeah.
That was just awesome. You know, I had so many geek out moments in this episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes with it. One of the questions that Rosemary actually asked was, you know, where does this story fit in? Is it, you know, with the rest of the Arrowverse? I think this is all Earth Prime. This is the Superman we saw in Supergirl. This is the same. This is all on the same planet. So you'll probably will see some kind of crossovers later, or if not, I know there was supposed to be originally a Batwoman crossover, but I don't know what happened with that.
We're going to kind of talk about that a little bit more, but that's why I didn't want to kind of go too much into Rosemary's question, but
that's why I didn't go too far.
Yeah, so I'm with you guys on Tyler because I really did. I think one of the things that if Superman is done right, he's like one of the most human of heroes, and because ideally he should have that humility to me, and I think he really gets that. So many other heroes don't, and you know, if it's done right, it's, you know, that's where it comes. And I think that's one of the reasons I was really looking forward to seeing that side of it. So I'll agree with you guys on that one. So we'll see. Time will tell as more episodes go live for us all. We're going to talk about the Arrowverse in that sense, but John Paul brought up the question of all the Easter eggs. And I know I did catch one or two myself. I'll toss out a quick one for me. And then I guess rather than Karen, even though you're next, since he has that list. So I laughed when I saw the Smallville Crows banner. That's one of the things that caught me. And I was like, because they are really paying homage to so many earlier iterations of various Superman stories. So, John, how do you want to share some of the ones that you saw or that you noticed?
Oh, I only noticed probably 4 or 5. There were like 2 or 3 dozen out there. I'm not going to sit here and read them all. People can go read mine. But the ones I noticed, Mike already mentioned one, him catching the PT Cruiser, you know, the cover of Action. But at the same time, his costume, when he turns around, it wasn't the line about my mom made it, which was great. But it was, when you first see it, you see the black shield and you think, oh, Crisis. But no, that was the original Fleischer animated version of the costume. And that was what was so cool. I mean, they carried it through so many iterations of that. When they mentioned the bonfire was happening, the people who created Superman originally, Siegel and Schuster, it was at Schuster Quarry or something like that. It's where the bonfire was happening in the story. So that, you know, call back to one of the creators of Superman. And the other one, you have to pause to catch it. But when he's walking through the kitchen, when Clark is walking through the kitchen early on, he just talked to both kids and saw he missed the call from his mom and so on. There's a blackboard there, you know, with notes to the family and stuff. And you've got Dr. Donner, which is Richard Donner. You got Siegel and Schuster mentioned on there. I want to say there's someone else mentioned. Christopher Reeve is mentioned on it. So that blackboard, there could have been more, but those are just, it's like, oh, great. You know, looking for those fun things, which the Arrowverse has always done. The number of times you'll see them arrive at a crime is happening at the corner of, and then they'll mention 2 artists' names, you know, for the 2 street names, things like that. Those are always fun. So who knows how many more are in there? And yeah, I'm not going to read down the whole list. Those are the ones that jumped out at me when I was watching it.
Anybody else have ones that they noticed?
I noticed the ones in the kitchen, but that was the only ones I really caught when I was watching it.
I noticed some I mean, I think a lot of them have done those callbacks to Christopher Reeve. You know, a lot of the Clark mannerisms at the planet were right out of those that Superman movie. You know, we've seen that. Brendan Routh did it. Henry Cavill has done it. They've all kind of touched on some of those same exact movements. So
it was interesting because Henry's Superman was almost too big to be a little nebbishy Clark Kent. And it just didn't seem to fit well. Where, you know, all the others, Brandon's and Chris's Superman, even on the TV, those Clarks worked a little better than I thought Henry's did. And I thought this episode, this arc, works really, really well.
Anybody else want to share any? Karen, did you notice any?
Yeah, I was just watching it for fun and got pointed at where he's up there now. and he would go, "Oh, look." So yeah, mine were kind of pointed out to me.
Yeah, my husband, I think, smacked me a couple times when I was.
I remembered one other one I did notice, which I thought was kind of a cool and really small. And there were a lot of really, really obscure things I never would have even picked up on ever. But when Lana and them are sitting around the kitchen talking, and they're telling stories about Martha, and Lana says something about how she was such a superwoman. Well, in the comics, Lana actually was Superwoman herself for a while. So it's kind of cool they gave Lana the Superwoman line. And I caught that one at the time thinking, oh, that's cool. But, just neat stuff.
Okay, so we only have, we can go a little bit over since we're not on Dragon Con full time, but I don't want to go too much longer than an hour. But with the Arrowverse, since this is, still calls back to Greg Berlanti, and, even he calls it the Arrowverse now. And I wanted to kind of see where we thought in, especially for those of you who didn't notice, we were clearly not going to figure spoilers, because if you haven't watched the first episode, what are you doing here? So, especially, of course, we have that ending where we, with Crisis, they kind of distilled things back. And even though DC has said we still have a multiverse, essentially, it's not quite the same kind of multiverse. There's supposedly no Earth 1, Earth 2, but we still have Earth 1, Earth 2. We just don't have Earth 66 and 79 and all the other variations.
Bingo.
Supposedly. So,
Hi.
Where do we see this fitting with the Arrowverse?
I think it fits perfectly. And like I mentioned earlier, this is still the Superman you got from Supergirl. And, I was actually surprised that we didn't see cameos from Supergirl or Kira at the wedding, or, when they did some of the flashbacks or something. But, that's totally cool that they didn't, because, they want this show to be on its own. But it is fully in the middle of everything that's going on all the other shows except for on the CW, except for Stargirl, which takes place on Earth 2. So, and then you have Doom Patrol on its own world, and you have Titans on its own, and you have those, and the cartoons and the movies each one are on their own. But they purposely did this, that this show takes place, especially because this is Supergirl's last season. I think Superman and Lois is going to become the focal point, along with Flash.
So has Black Lightning showed up in any of the crossovers yet? Because I know there was some going back and forth about whether that was
he was in Crisis, and they established during the Crisis that now he's on his characters are all on Earth Prime also.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Aaron, I know you didn't watch Crisis, but do you have any thoughts on how it fits into the Arrowverse?
No, like Mike was saying, I mean, we've seen, both the actors playing Lois and Clark previously in Supergirl. As Mike was saying, John Cryer is going to be making an appearance in the show, so that kind of cements it where it fits in the universe. So yeah, it's the same world as Supergirl, which, if I remember correctly, at least pre-Crisis, was not quite the same one as, I think the Flash is on a different reality, which means that
not anymore.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's all boom. They did introduce Morgan Edge in Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because of what happened in Crisis, I think we're going to see a new person playing Morgan.
It is a new actor playing it. So. Karen?
Well, it is definitely in the same universe, but I think they're going to have to be very careful until Supergirl ends, because it's at least 14 or 15 years in the future. so the crossovers can't be at the exact same time because Lois and Clark didn't have kids yet.
Except
In Supergirl's timeline.
timeline.
So yes, you can cross over.
They do because of Crisis.
Yeah, I thought of that too. I said, wait, how can it be? And then I was like, wait, Crisis reset everything. So they probably had Lois and Clark get together earlier in this version.
But I mean, they could get away with it, just have her come over, but not mention anything that's going on in her show.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think that's
so that you can't tell because even in Crisis, they didn't have teenagers. They didn't have multiple teenagers in Crisis.
Actually, they did after the big. They did. You know, they mentioned the two that they had twins, and it was like, you got to get home. The twins need to talk to you or something. You know,
just one line at the very end.
It was it was literally one line that threw it all. You know, they did that.
You were there during this show before then.
Yeah, exactly. But also they did the same thing with Diggle. So they actually, you know, because when Barry went back with the what was it, Flashpoint thing, he had Diggle's child went from being a girl to a boy,
and back to being.
And now it's back that he has He has two kids.
Yeah.
So they did that also.
John Paul.
I think Berlanti, they've always done a great job of giving every show its own identity. Even though there's certain tropes, certain things they always do, but you have the dark vigilante with Arrow, you have the scientific kind of science fiction-y Flash. Supergirl got to become the social warrior, the issues-based one, which I always thought was cool, since Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, was always that social warrior in the comics that they couldn't use him, so they gave that to Supergirl to talk about all the issues. Every show gets its own identity. I think this one is going to be all family. I think this show is going to be very almost like back to the beginning of when it was the WB and UPN separate. You had things like Seventh Heaven and things like that focused a lot on family in the early days. I think this will be their family show. Yeah, you got the twins, you got their high school, you got that kind of stuff, but it's going to be its identity. And the coolest thing is they got away from the template of you got the hero and then you got the person in their ear, the man in the chair, the man behind the computer, whatever you want to call it. But the computer person, Felicity, Cisco, and so on. You've always had that person, and then you had the friend who was quirky in some way, but maybe scientific. They've gotten rid of all of that. His support network is completely different. His support network is just his family, and when he's out being a hero, he's out being a hero. He doesn't have somebody in his ear the entire time. He might get called by General Lane. He might be fed information by Lois from some of her research on a story, but when he's being a hero, he's not having to figure it out. So he doesn't need that person in his ear the entire time. So it's going to be a different feel to the show because of that, I think. And it's kind of cool breaking that mold a little bit. They needed to do that. Kind of like Marvel needs to break that mold in the movies and not keep doing the same story over and over and over. And they're doing that. They're starting to break that, but they got a lot of complaints about that. By the time of Ant-Man, I guess it was, they were really, retreading the same ground. Hopefully with Superman and Lois, they can stick to doing their own thing really well.
I'm seeing, Greg Berlanti has progressed in his life so that he has kids now. So I think that it kind of ties into why he chose to add this and make this very iteration of it. I agree. I think we are going to see some cameos. I think, but probably not for the first couple. Because, let the show establish itself, let it get its identity out there. And I think, especially with them entering Supergirl, they're going to make a point of like dropping her in here and there, and probably more as Kara than as Supergirl. I would think, because then it also hides some things a little easier.
Well, and it's more of the family.
Yeah, exactly.
Family
ties in with that, and she could show up as Kara even after Supergirl is done. I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
She would be against that, so
that's an interesting question. Which Supergirl would they use? Since they just recast Supergirl for another show? Are they going to use Melissa? Are they going to use the other actress that just hired?
This other Supergirl is for the Flashpoint movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not for another TV show. Melissa is.
Yeah. DC has made it pretty clear that the movies, except unless you're going to stick Ezra Miller into Crisis, they are totally separate. That's the one line that they've pretty much said. So.
Okay.
So now we get to our big ending. So of course we find the mysterious armored figure at the end turns in, who even stabs Clark with kryptonite, but yet, or Superman with kryptonite, is Captain Luthor. So what are our thoughts quickly on that, since we now know Lex and the Luthors are pretty established in the Arrowverse?
Well, this way. Mike, since I stole some of your other lines, I'll let you go with this. I think we're on the same page with the Crisis mention, so go for it.
Yeah, this obviously is a Luthor from another Earth. And that's why he said, we're both from places that are planets that are no longer in existence. He somehow survived the crisis, and remembers everything that happened and wasn't merged into with the current Luthor. So it'll be very interesting to think. But a little side note on that, we're assuming it's a Lex Luthor. It could be a different Luthor too.
That's my thought. I think it's Alexander.
It might be, actually.
That's for those who don't know, but watch Crisis. The original comic, Crisis on Infinite Earths, started with the destruction of Earth 3, where everything was backwards, and the only hero of that Earth was Lex Luthor, who at the end, when they can't save the world, him and his wife Lois send their infant child Alexander in a spaceship off to be saved, very much paralleling Superman's story. And that was Alexander Luthor, which, if you remember, the only way they could stop his advanced growth and kind of stabilize him was in a suit of armor, which you've got a Luthor in a suit of armor, and we know John Cryer is going to be the Lex Luthor still. So I really bet this is going to be the Alexander Luthor of this world. And I really don't think he's going to be a villain. I honestly think in the end, he is there. He knows what Superman was like, Ultraman in his case, but he knows how Superman could go evil. And how he could try to rule the world. I think he's there to try to protect everyone else from what he sees as the potential. Now, he could stay an adversary, but I don't think in the end he's going to be an outright villain. They might even end up teaming up for all we know, but I think they'll end up doing that. Now, they could go all out and make Alexander Luthor a real villain, but I really think that'll be one of their twists, is giving us that. And that's okay. I loved the action sequences. No matter what they do with it, that was all out Superman, super powered battles. That was great.
Aaron, do you have any thoughts on that?
Again, early days. The fact that they've got a multiverse to pull from means that you can, to some extent, do anything you want to do. You've just got to try and keep it in kind of as much as you can the bounds of the reality you've already established. It's an easy temptation to fall to start bringing Deus Ex Machina stuff in, because it comes from another universe. But if you start doing that too often, it will get old. I agree with what both John Paul and Mike have said there. Since I haven't actually seen Crisis. And those reset episodes, they change everything. So totally get the idea that it's a Luthor from another universe. That as soon as I looked at, and I was like, okay, I hope they're not going to retcon John Cryer out. But now that we've established John Cryer is going to be back in, then having it been a Luthor from some other universe makes perfect sense. Not sure how he knows how to write Kryptonian, but hey, maybe there's maybe wherever he came from, there was a best-selling, teach yourself Kryptonian in 15 easy lessons book. Who knows? So yeah, I'm down with it. As I said before, kind of waiting to see how things unfold. At this point, we're at the beginning of a lot of things. There's a lot of things we can speculate about, but we really don't know very much at all about how they intend to think. It's just the pilot. And, as we were saying earlier on, you can look at a pilot, and then if you go back in 3 years' time and look at this pilot, you're going to be like, wow, this is so different than how it is now. And that's just the normal way it is with pilots. You start out with one direction, and as things naturally progress, as any writer will tell you, the story comes to life and pushes you in a direction that you didn't anticipate yourself. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Karen?
Karen's muted. There you go.
Yeah. The way my computer's set up, I can't see the buttons on the bottom, so I have to look over my computer to find them. Like I said, I am an armchair superhero fan. 99.9% of mine comes from watching movies and TV shows, but I have the uber comic book nerd there who is whispering in my ear. My first thought is, oh, he's got to be from another Earth. And then, of course, my husband whispers in my ear all of his theories. So I really don't have any other theories other than that's not Lex, or that's not their Lex. That's a different Lex. One, he should recognize his voice, you would think.
Mm-hmm.
If it was his Lex Luthor, you would think he'd recognize it. So it's got to be somebody else's Lex.
Good point.
That is a very valid point. So I kind of along those lines. Although when you think about it, Lex, based on Supergirl Lex, was Earth 2, and we never actually saw Lex on Earth Prime. So as far as the Oliver Queen, that whole universe, until it kind of merged together. So it could be that was the Lex. And I think it's very telling, the comment where he writes about, Kal-El, you're no hero, because everybody is often the hero of their own story. So if he's looking at it like I'm the hero, like you brought up, kind of coming from that perspective, he's also relating it to probably the Superman he knows as opposed to what he actually knows. And he might not have that same orientation. He might not have that same thought processes or even be aware too much of Crisis. And that could be a good touchstone for them to use for the people joining the show who didn't like watch every Crisis and every CW series. It might be a good way to kind of reorient the general populace to what happened by bringing in a character who's more the everyman, who doesn't have that awareness of what happened, to kind of bring that to play. So I think there could be a lot in there.
I just had a thought, by the way. I have to, because something you said triggered this. If you go back to when the Silver Age started and they rebooted all the heroes, and Barry Allen was the first one, you see him reading a Flash comic that is the original Jay Garrick Golden Age Flash. So in Earth 1, all the original ones were comic books. We saw Jordan playing a video game. I think it was Injustice or Injustice 2, early in the episode, where in that world, Superman has gone bad after Lois is killed. This is from the comics again, but in that world, Superman has gone bad. He's taken over the world in order to try to stop crime. I mean, he's doing it from a point of view of, I've got to stop these bad things from happening and such. But Superman is the villain in the Injustice world. What if this is somehow them doing kind of a callback? Well, if Earth 1 and Earth 2 back in the day was comic book to that, we're going to take it as a video game, and this is the Injustice Lex Luthor. I don't know. That could be way off. I have not played Injustice, the game, but it's just something you said made me remember that. It's like, that would be really, really cool.
And the actor actually who's listed as Captain Luthor, who knows? We might never come out of the suit. So we'll see. So any last minute thoughts so we can tie things up?
I'm going to be a quick last minute thought here. Just took this one out. It's going to be interesting to see how Lana's husband, Kyle, the fire chief, plays out. If he's going to be sort of a low level antagonist for Clark, because he clearly does not feel really good about people who've left Smallville and then, come back years and years later. He's got that whole, as he said, you abandoned the community that raised you.
Definitely has a chip on his shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a chip on his shoulder, and that does actually touch on something that we see in real life. That there is a pattern in recent years of people from small towns. If you go to college and you get an education, unless you've gone into being like a doctor or a veterinary science, there we go. There's usually not a lot of things to do in a small rural environment. So naturally enough, you tend to go to the big cities where you can use your skills. So, in the kind of way that we saw a little bit with Supergirl, talking about current issues, this might be something they're going to address a bit more in depth. Just a thought.
Mike, you have any last thoughts?
Yeah, never put a router on top of a barn. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Put an odd place, yeah.
I know. It's just like,
Oh,
that's not going to get it's not like it's an aerial antenna that's going to try to get to the better signal or such. It was just like, come on, plot device right there. Do we really do that?
Ma can't, climbing up there and putting
yeah.
Exactly. I
Even
really
said,
don't see her doing.
I can't think of putting this thing up here,
Exactly.
Clark, can you fly over and install my internet for me?
Sure, Mom, I'll be over in a jiffy.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he put it up there so that they couldn't touch it because he knew his parents weren't very technical and he didn't want them to screw it up. So he knew there he's the only one who could do the tech.
He got tired of getting the calls. Clark, why is the VCR still flashing 000?
Mom.
Karen, any last thoughts?
I'm just very hopeful and excited. I love Supergirl. I love Legends of Tomorrow. I love Flash. I'm very hopeful that it will be wonderful and become one of my favorites. And stay true to being Superman was always where Batman was dark. Superman was always positive and hopeful. And John Paul mentioned Mr. Rogers. He was always the optimist and the positive thing. So I'm hoping they don't angsty it too much.
John Paul?
Something I'm really hoping we see. I met Peter Tomasi at one of the conventions, and he wrote some of those great family stories, especially the father-son parts of it. And there was a couple of issues where they went to the county fair, and it was kind of standalone one-shot issues, and it was just Lois, Clark, Jonathan having fun at the county fair. And yeah, they end up using their powers, subtly in different ways to save somebody or do something, whatever. But they were just fun, entertaining human interest stories. And he said he had to fight constantly with his editors to be allowed to publish those stories. But the fans really, really responded well to them when he did publish them. I hope we get at least one episode, at least for a few minutes of one, where they go to the county fair. And my favorite moment from one of them, some crisis happens and Lois covers for them and says, okay, Clark, Jonathan, y'all go off and do your Superman and Superboy thing. I'll cover for you. And they fly off to do their thing. She comes home, finds them still in costume, collapsed on the couch, asleep, with like pizza or popcorn in front of them, partly eaten. And on the television, they got that detail showing them watching the Andy Griffith Show. That very classic Americana, just something about that just spoke to these are good people. They're headed the right direction. It's very positive. It's very light. I hope we get at least some of that because there's going to be some angst. There's going to be some tragedies. There's going to be plenty of the other stuff. I hope we get a few of those moments of, this is a good family. This is what we want to strive to be like. And we can achieve it if we just try.
That's a good note to end on. Thanks, John Paul. So yes, I will let my panelists here have the last word because I think they pretty much covered all the great points. I want to thank you guys all for being here. We're probably going to do WandaVision in about 2 weeks. So we'll see. I didn't want to do it too soon to the ending because, some people don't get to watch it till Sunday. So I was like, we'll wait an extra week. So we'll talk about that in about 2 weeks. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Please let me know if there's any panels you'd like to see before DragonCon. Fingers crossed again. And we will hopefully see you all in a couple of weeks or in a couple months. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.